I'm a watchman, forever vigilant, steady watching and listening, disciplined, militant, killing these dudes that started visiting. What's the latest word, yo, Sil? We need to know. Tell us what you heard, yo, Sil. We need to know the ins and outs. Who's walking out, buying in? We need to know your thoughts on what's new, what you do to stream a hell of a show. Let's go. One hell of a show. Let's go.
Are there any fans out there of the Cape Crusader animated series exclusively on Amazon? I enjoyed the first season for what it was, a reinterpretation, different approach to the Batman mythos in the spirit of the Batman animated series, the dark nature of it, detective work. One thing I did appreciate of Cape Crusader is they try to put in some fantastical stuff as well too in that season. So that was a risk that they took, and I thought it was enjoyable. Thought it was an enjoyable series. Most people know among the producers of Cape Crusader is Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves, we kind of go further into just how is Reeves using this animated series as sort of like a vehicle of his ideas. It was very interesting. Season 1, you got the Joker reveal. They saved it. They didn't use Joker all throughout the first season, which was smart to establish a world. And then you drop it on them on the finale. And so now we're looking forward to the second season with the Joker. And so they talk about that. So there's some quotes as far as with the Joker. Again, this is how they explain it, right? So let's read this. You got the showrunner, the co-showrunner saying, I think it'll be a new take on the Joker for people who only know of Mark Hamill animated series or Jack Nicholson. He says this take on the Joker will be very different from them. Okay, so that's one thing, different from the most iconic versions. He says, but for people who've read comics for a long, long time, it won't be different. He's saying, I think some people will recognize it and go, oh, I see what they're doing. And other people will go, wow, this is different, but I think it's all Joker. This is interesting. I like this quote. I like this quote from him. Because if you're talking about differences, okay, so Mark Hamill, Jack Nicholson, Joker are two different takes as well, right? They're just very iconic, in the past. Then you have Heath Ledger and then Joaquin Phoenix. So, these are all Jokers, but the Joker from the comic book, what could he mean by that? And I'm looking forward to y'all feedback on this. Like, the Joker from the comic, I think if you looking in the past versions of the Joker, I think Mark Hamill was probably the closest. The Batman animated series was probably closest to the comic version. But are we going to get more of like the crime boss Joker? So it's interesting that he's saying again that this is from the comics. We'll see and judge for ourselves. Season 2 of Cape Crusader. Next question here, they asked the co-showrunner that obviously Matt Reeves is a big part of the show. And it says this show, as well as his live action stuff, fits into a niche, being very stylized and grounded. What do conversations about making this world distinct from his live action work look like? And this is the answer here. It says, well, it's funny, we weren't given a mandate to match what he was doing. He's being very accommodating in that he understands our show is separate from what he's doing in the movies, and he gets where our influences are coming from, and he understands it. So, again, two very different things going on this show. They continue. The only thing we may have directly in common is that our Batman's coming from a more detective angle. That's debatable. I don't know if Pattinson's that detective. It says there's a general dark tone. Yeah, but other than that, the settings are different. It's all different. We're basically coming from the same source material, just slightly verging away. from stepping on each other's toes. So I read this part because people was wondering, okay, Reeves, if he was to do some kind of fantastical type of story, or like what would his Clayface, if he was going to have Patterson versus a Clayface? There's a Clayface in the Cape Crusader show, and it's more of the classic style, right? And but what this co-showrunner is saying is that whatever they're doing in this animated show is basically saying Reeves would not adapt this in live action, right? So that's just interesting nugget there. Because again, we wonder how fantastical can Matt Reeves really get in live action. And again, this is just I thought that version of Clayface and Cape Crusader, I was like, oh, this is a way Reeves could do this in live action. But now we're seeing he's only doing this in the animated because he will not do that in live action as far as that version of it. Interesting. Again, Cape Crusader, I thought that was a great pickup by Amazon to get this series. We got season 2 coming, and I guess they're saying as long as people are jiving with it, they can keep these seasons coming. We'll see. We'll definitely see. But the co-showrunner says there's no premiere date yet. They're putting on the final touches, and they're hoping this will air in 2026. Me as well. Let's transition over to the DCU, as we got several DC topics today. And the Peacemaker finale. There's been a lot of talks about, again, the disappointments of it. And I mean, like I said, I enjoyed the finale. I enjoyed the story overall. Actually, of season 2, definitely compared to season 1. Like I said, I thought season 2 was okay, and I thought the story was okay. But that finale was a little overhyped, pre-hyped. Didn't need that. Didn't help the very just character-based finale with a few things sprinkled in. But I want to address a few things because James Gunn, he is. It's an interesting commentary online regarding James Gunn and again these shows, but we're just going to stick to the entertainment side of this. And what got a lot of people talking was potential cameos. I remember, like almost like a month ago, Gunn was like, "We're not letting no one see the last 3 episodes of Peacemaker. There's so many cameos. There's so much just craziness. I can't let it out. It can't be spoiled." So I was like, dang, I was like, okay, Gunn is killing it. And when we got to episode 6, I thought episode 6 was, a grand episode. The Lex Luthor cameo, which ended up being the hugest cameo of the season, done well. And then the whole reveal of Earth X, which is from the comics, though some people are upset that they use something from the comics. But anyway, we ain't gonna talk about that. Episode 6 is a great episode of DC television. It is. And so but what didn't help the rest of the episodes was, I think it was even Gunn's wife was like, "Oh, but episode 8 is even, just as major." So I'm thinking like, man, if episode 6 gave us all these goods, the finale is going to be insane, right? And so we all kind of waited to that final episode thinking like, oh, episode 6 was such a high bar, right? I could rewatch that episode several times. That was wonderful. And then we get to episode 8 and it's just like, oh, okay, just a human story. Show's over. So amongst people's critiques, it wasn't just simply like, oh, just this show is bad. It was just like, oh, it was going good up to that point, and we were just expecting a major climax at the end of the season. And so you got the Lex Luthor cameo. Are we getting bigger cameos? And we didn't. One particular cameo that's been discussed several times is a Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle. Everyone, as far as on social media, Everyone was expecting a Blue Beetle cameo. They even asked uh, Zolo Meriduene, the actor of Blue Beetle. They asked him, and even he was like, "Hey, I don't know," but he was like, "There's other Blue Beetles if he's going to use one." So just the hype was insane, and and a Blue Beetle cameo really didn't make sense, and that idea wasn't just manifested; it sort of was hinted at by James Gunn. So we're going to talk about it because the quote's out there, and we'll discuss it, but as this person asked James Gunn, yo, why'd you lie about Blue Beetle being there, bro? We want Jaime Reyes. We miss Jaime Reyes, he says. Because we know Blue Beetle from the movie, we know he's going to show up in the DCU, and they're going to retcon whatever they have to. We see how Gunn's doing it now, right? Gunn says, I never said Blue Beetle was going to be there. I said people might be in luck who want to see Blue Beetle again. Now, this is where we get to where it's getting a little cappy, getting a little cappy from James Gunn, because we have audio, James Gunn, and a few weeks ago, everyone again was building up and being excited for this, for the finale. And in the vein of people being excited for cameos, the interviewer asked James Gunn specifically about Blue Beetle being in Peacemaker, right? And then we hear James Gunn's answer.
And I have to say, I'm manifesting your Blue Beetle appearance in upcoming seasons.
Well, I won't say you're not in luck.
I told you I wasn't going anywhere.
See, I'm just saying, in the vein of the interviewer was excited for Peacemaker, and they're saying, hey, is Blue Beetle going to show up, and could he potentially show up in Peacemaker? That was the question. It wasn't, will we ever see Blue Beetle again? That wasn't the question.
As a fan, I have to say I'm manifesting your Blue Beetle appearance in upcoming seasons.
Well, I won't say you're not in luck.
The problem here with James Gunn is, again, how the question was structured. It wasn't, again, will we ever see Blue Beetle again? They're like, hey, upcoming seasons, or what, basically this season or a future TV show with Blue Beetle, will he pop up? So with Gunn saying, oh, hey, you might be in luck. Gunn clearly could just said, well, Blue Beetle, we got the animated series coming. We got the animated series, so you'll see Blue Beetle. So everyone knew that. Everyone knows you're working on an animated show. Again, the star, Zolo Meriduene, he touched on this several times. So that wasn't what the interview was asking. Will we see Blue Beetle again? We knew we was going to see him again. It was, will he be in Peacemaker? Will he be one of the cameos here? Or even in the future seasons of Peacemaker? Because the way James Gunn answered this, yes, he ignited people online to start expecting Blue Beetle to show up. Is off of James Gunn's own words, which is insane. The Gunn's like, oh, I don't know what people thought Blue Beetle, because of the way you answered that question. You hear him say, like, oh, hey, I won't say you're not in luck. For an animated series, you didn't have to be all that cryptic. We know the animated series is coming. The interview was asking about Peacemaker. And then you people went as far as to say that Blue Beetle was going to show up on a dancing intro. It got out of control. And whose fault was it? It was James Gunn's own fault. That's the only point. And, I really think Gunn, I know he has a big job being, co-CEO of DC Studios. He's the creator. He's writing scripts. He's reading scripts, handing out notes, trying to get everything in order. He needs to chill with the teasing and the Easter eggs. Like, just let's tighten this up because it's putting out false expectations. Like, I wouldn't even thought of a Blue Beetle and Peacemaker until Gunn sitting there saying he may not be in luck. Whatever he said, that's what started this madness. And really, all this takes us to a larger conversation I kind of want to address now. Because I've been a person, I mean, obviously, my channel started because of covering Snyder Cut and being excited about the Snyderverse and DC overall. DC fandom really is what kicked off my channel. And that was all parts of DC. So, you know, you want to see all these different sides of DC actually win. I don't like seeing bad DC. Like, I didn't enjoy Shazam 2. I didn't want to not enjoy it. It just didn't appeal to me. But I did enjoy, you know, most of the Flash film. I had a lot invested in the Flash film, you know, personally. But as a fan, I was looking forward to a lot of these projects. And, I hate when it goes bad. But one thing with this DCU, we got the year of James Gunn. This was the Gunverse, right? 2025 DC fans, we got straight up the Gunverse. Creature Commandos, which I thought was a good effort, not a good finale. Peacemaker, great story, not a good finale. We kind of got we have a template now. Gunn allow other people to do these DC shows because the finale ain't lining up in these shows for a lot of people. But put that aside, you also had Superman, which, again, we're not going to talk about what's success, what's not. WB is claiming amongst all the films that WB has done for this year, that's distributed this year, including F1, there's numbers out there showing the profits, you know, they got from all these films, and that includes Superman as a profit. So I think that film, you know, did good enough. And then you have these TV shows. If all this stuff didn't land for you, hey, this is Gunverse 2025. DC fans, I'm looking forward to 2026. Supergirl, Clayface, Lanterns. I'm looking forward to that. I can't wait to cover all that and talk to y'all about that. But Gunn, there's like I'm wondering Gunn's awareness with DC right now. I'm wondering his awareness ability with all this stuff, because it's one thing to do niche entertainment, you know, just for Gunn fans, just for Peacemaker fans or whatever. But for the broader DC audience, Gunn has to realize, you know, not everybody likes all this obscure stuff, right? This is D-list stuff. Everybody ain't really down for that. He hit it with Peacemaker. Credit where it's due. No one was talking about Peacemaker until Gunn did the series, right? Now, many knew Vigilante, and Gunn did his own style. That's still not happy with that. Though I will say Earth 2 Vigilante or Earth X Vigilante actually was a beast. And that's the only scene I liked with Vigilante in 2 seasons. But let me get to my point here. Gunn, I'm wondering his awareness, because he got this question here. Someone saying, I hope there was a big reveal in the finale. Since we didn't get it, I want to know, is Fleury Martian Manhunter? But just because he's black, he got to be Martian Manhunter? Like, I'm just saying. Or even if he's not, is there more to him than what we saw this season? Gunn says he's not, and I don't get that people don't think that there aren't big reveals here. See, this is what good. Oh my goodness. Okay. This is where Gunn, he's like, hey, big reveals, you got Checkmate and Salvation. The grandmas don't know about that. The general audience don't know about no Checkmate and Salvation. That wasn't no big reveal. Lex Luthor, again, was a great cameo in episode 6. But I think Gunn, I feel personally, Gunn has kind of lost the pulse, thinking that this was going to be some slam dunk big reveal. For me, and people like me, geeks and nerds who grew up reading comics and still read comics, and we talk about CBMs every day now, we get it, but we're not the majority. That's most people, their comic book knowledge is what they see in movies and TV shows. There's an entire generation that grew up with the Arrowverse, and that's all they know about DC. And this is no knock. This is no knock on people. That's cool. Not everyone consumes, comic books. Just the numbers show that. You're happy when you get big hits in comics because not everyone is, flocking to read them. So when I saw the Checkmate, and all you saw with Checkmate was, just a sign. Checkmate's here. Whoop-de-doo. I'm looking forward to Sasha Bordo, because what that's showing us, Checkmate, in this DCU world, is that the 11th Street Kids, probably minus Peacemaker now, but then you add in, you got Judo Master there, you got Fleury, Sasha Bordo. So there's some potential there, but I'm assuming Gunn's going to tell that story. So is it really just going to be more of the same, what we got with Peacemaker? And then if this Waller show that he's talking about, is that going to be, though someone else is writing it, is this the level of DC shows that we're getting where we got a lot of hints, but we just, just smaller stories, and that's fine. We just need different voices, Gunn, because I think James Gunn really misjudged how these reveals were going to land. All right. Checkmate. Okay. Potential. You had one good moment with Sasha Bordo in Peacemaker season 2. And then she was pretty much a sideline character the rest of the way. So I will want a Sasha Bordo series. Now that's what Checkmate could end up being. And then you can introduce new characters, and that's cool. But we got to start looking at the why for these series. We need a little bit more, in my opinion. And then the Salvation thing, again, there were several people on multiple platforms. I'm seeing, people commenting when I was talking about these things. They were like, I didn't even know about Salvation, like, from the comics. Like, they were just like, okay, Salvation, that's cool. Very obscure. Great reveal, because I'm like, okay, it's a lot of potential, but then I'm thinking, like, is it really going to be used with this potential? Like, because on that Salvation world, it ends up being a testing ground, for Apocalypse, for the New Gods, Dark Side. Major potential, but are we really gonna see people from Apocalypse there? Or is it just the little Easter egg, like, hey, wink, wink, which only the minority of people watching that show got. No one else of the majority, they didn't understand. They're like, okay, you stranded in Peacemaker. Okay, I don't know, there's monsters out there. Yeah, that's a sad ending. And that's it. But as soon as I heard him say Salvation earlier in the episode, I was like, okay, we got some potential. But that small reveal, because that wasn't a major reveal, Gun. Checkmates of it. These weren't. I gotta disagree. These weren't major reveals. It didn't land like that. And I'm assuming Gunn's not going to pick up this TV show cliffhanger into a Man of Tomorrow movie, because I'll tell you right now, that movie will fail if Gunn is saying, oh, this is setting up Man of Tomorrow. Now, I believe there's a quote out there. Gunn is saying, well, no, it was the whole Lex and Rick Flag Sr. connection. That's what's setting up Man of Tomorrow. And I get that. I get that. This is the problem with that, though. Saying, oh, Rick Flag Sr., is this the Rick Flag Sr. saga? Because this ain't going to go hard on the big screen like you think it's going to do, Gunn. Like, Gunn has said 3 key ways that Peacemaker Season 2 sets up Man of Tomorrow. Among that is the Rick Flag Sr. and Lex partnership, the Salvation angle, and he mentioned something else that really doesn't matter right now. But the thing is, this may not be epic enough. If Man of Tomorrow is just picking up on this Lex angle, and then you add Superman, and it definitely has to be more, way more than this to sell the Man of Tomorrow movie. Because when it's all said and done about with Superman and what it did or what it shouldn't do, what it could have done, whatever, 615 million. They claim the profits. The numbers are out there of the profits of all the Warner Brothers films, including Superman. This could be the ceiling. Because if Man of Tomorrow is just more of the same, and you just got just the Justice Gang, I don't see maybe the Supergirl angle. Maybe you lean into the Lobo angle, but Gunn is saying, no, this is a Superman Lex story. This is feeling like a TV series, which I would watch. But when you're talking about DC theatrical, we want blockbuster. And again, I'll repeat this because I know obviously people are going to misquote or misconstrue clear English, but again, the Superman film, what we received, I thought it was again well put together as far as the story of Superman. After I get past the first act of James Gunn's Superman, and I think it was a well put together story. As far as epicness of it, it's very ground level. So it did good enough. Again, I believe it made a little money. So you want to build from there. So if your announcement is, well, Man of Tomorrow is, just the evolution of the Superman Lex story. Okay, I mean, I got the Superman Lex story here. We understand it's a bigger threat. There's no reason, if you got Brainiac, there's no reason not to tease that now. Because I said this on another video. When Man of Tomorrow was announced, I was intrigued. Just again, as a comic reader, you see the Jim Lee art with the Lex power suit. So you see the potential there. Again, this is kind of like a BVS moment where Lex and Superman will fight. Lex can finally fight Superman with the suit. And then it's a bigger threat, and Lex will always choose mankind, right? He will always choose to save mankind. So potential, great. Big theater scale. Is this what the general audience wants? Or let's see Lex with the power suit. No, that's what us want. Again, the comic book geeks. That's what we want. But I don't know how that's going to sell, a $200 million film, right? So you need more with this. That's my my input, my advice, and I believe Gunn can potentially give more. But going back to him thinking like, oh, Checkmate and Salvation was big reveals. I'm like, Gunn, I don't know if you got your finger on the pulse, of selling DC big time. That didn't even, sell your finale on a streaming platform. Like, you got stuff like this. Steve Agee saying, oh, yeah, it's definitely gonna be more Johnny Economos in the DCU. Bro, I don't care. I don't care about these smaller characters like that, man. This is not teasing something epic. Oh, the 11th Street Kids will be back. Great. Okay. And hopefully James Gunn does not write and direct Checkmate. I want someone to take that to a different level, a different flavor with Sacha Bordeaux. If we're not getting that, I don't want a Checkmate show of just a continuation of the Peacemaker flavor. I don't actually. I'm actually good without that. And again, this Peacemaker season was good. And you had your finale, and that's I feel that's the end of that story. And whatever that tone, whatever you want to call it, adult DC or whatever. Because then when we go over to Checkmate, I want, again, just a different flavor to these characters. I want more epic moments. I don't need Gunnisms, every show that I get. You had this year, Gunn. You established, and see, that's the thing, Gunn, you established your DCU. So it's not all bad what happened this year. Creature Commandos, I thought, was a solid effort. And that was cool, again, for the type of audience that will watch a DC animated show. That was a solid effort, actually. You put cool Easter eggs overall. the Batman moment that you know that shook the world. You did some things. You did some things this year. Superman, like I said, some great moments. Mr. Terrific. But that's why I'm as a DC fan, I'm looking so forward to 2026 because now I know things are gonna get more epic, different voices, and in Gunn you get in where you fit in because in 2027 when you got Reeves Batman going to be out there, by that time we'll see Supergirl and Lanterns and everything, and in Gunn you come back with the same stuff with Man of Tomorrow. It's going to pale in comparison to these other, I think, more epic stuff, the Clayface stuff. I'm excited for different aspects of this DCU. We've just been inundated with James Gunn for this year, and it's not for everyone, and that's fine. We're going to get a chance to, again, see these voices. So that's, like I said, just overall 2025 Gunn. He established the ground level of the DCU. Great. That was an accomplishment. Again, according to some Warner Brothers figures, they count Superman among the profitable films of the year. They're in the black. They're doing good overall for theatrical DC. And then as far as streaming, I know there's different reports out there. People saying, "Oh, no one watched Peacemaker, no one watched Creature Commandos." But long story short, they did have viewership actually for both of those shows. And you know, it reached whatever audience they reach with that. I think Lanterns is gonna, you know, do even better, maybe even do like Penguin level viewership on a series. But we could use this year as a learning lesson. That's what I feel. James Gunn could use this year as a learning lesson to see what works, what's niche, what's needed, and what's not needed. And I'm just saying, overall for DC, you know, we saw what was put out there. So all I can do is judge what's already out there, and we need to go another level with this stuff. We can't, and we're not going to have the same year in 2026. Now, before we get to the Zack Snyder post that shook up Twitter, very interesting post by Zack Snyder, who recently opened up an Instagram account, and all chaos broke loose the other day with a post. But before we do that, let me touch on this real quick. I want to address this here because I make it very clear the track record on my platform, what I have stood for with DC fans overall, and also Snyder fans with the Snyder Cut coming out. And this article here with Screen Rant is the example of stuff that is fruitless fan wars, fruitless debates. And you got these articles, they will say inflammatory things one way or another about James Gunn or Zack Snyder, and they rely on you to push their articles and argue amongst yourselves. It's very easy to do this type of content to grift either side of this. I could easily, make countless videos saying what I hate about James Gunn, and if I have a passion for it, I would. But I just, it's not that deep to me. And the type of conversations that would attract, I'm not interested in. But one thing I know, I've always defended the Snyder fandom against falsities. I will continue to. There's the Snyder fandom, just like the DC fandom, is fractured as well. There are many in the Snyder fandom that's allowing people to push their agendas, a lot of faceless accounts, which I'll start bringing up on the screen because people act like they don't understand when I say the disingenuous people that's in the Snyder fandom, that's, you know, pushing narratives, false stories. And I watched that happen, and I spoke out against it with the Superman rollout. No matter what you feel about James Gunn, there's no reason to lie or to force false numbers, false figures. So it's clear, you know, again, what that Superman film has done, but it's also clear there's people with agendas that have infiltrated the Snyder fandom years ago. There's even angles where it's political agendas. The Us United era, it was really just like a paragraph in the Snyder story that was introducing a political agenda. And then there's those that's opposed to that, that's pushing their agendas now. Even with James Gunn, there's a political agenda of people that's upset with him after that Earth X story, right? So it's like I could easily spell this out for you, but let's keep it real. But my main thing here is, you know, debates like this, it's fanning stupid fanboy wars, and that's just not what I'm going to do on my channel. I think, yeah, that could probably be pretty lucrative if I fan the flames a little bit. But when I have concerns about James Gunn, it's going to be just like in this video, over on this video that you saw, the criticism I have, it's going to stick to the entertainment. And so, like I said, we're not going to dip our toe in all this, but this is just an example of how easy it is to fan the flames. And I posted about this. I was like, oh, I mean, obviously they need clicks. And yeah, they got their clicks. And if people want to continue to fall for that, and that's the thing too, I'm not here to convince you to do anything. If you want to go along with the fan wars, you're welcome to. It is when you come to this channel and you want to spam false information, it will get checked, right? You can have your fun out there, and if you want to be swayed by people with agendas and the political side of stuff, have at it. A part of Still Nation is people from multiple backgrounds, multiple areas. All I ask is we be respectful to each other when we're talking in the comment section. And again, everyone can have their opinion. Oh, James Gunn is a goof, you know, or Zack Snyder's too dark for me. I get scared at night. Whatever your opinion is, that's fine. But when it comes to numbers and figures and things like that, as I said in my last video, it won't be tolerated in my chat on my platform. Don't give me fake stories. I'm not going to allow you to give my other viewers fake stories. But if we're going to have opinions, I don't like this, I like this, that's fine. And again, just meaningless stuff like this, hey, maybe I should be doing content like that. Maybe is that what is that the sign that I'm being given that, oh, you should just go all out and be a shock jock, right? That's what pays. I'm not interested. I want to, again, talk about what I enjoy, clown what I don't enjoy, and then when it's the business behind it, I want accurate information when it comes to the business behind it. It's amazing in this information age. A touch of a finger, you can find any article, any piece of information that you're looking for. But people still are either being fooled by false stories or willingly pushing false stories because they have their agenda in their mind. Like I said, we're going to keep it real over here, as always. And I'm going to keep that same energy no matter what's the false story. We're going to keep that same energy, right? Talking about keeping some energy. Zack Snyder. This caused a tidal wave of debate. This is interesting. Zack Snyder, again, he's been on Instagram just for under a month, and he's just dropping different pictures, and everyone's excited. Obviously the fandom excited anytime Zack Snyder drops anything, but especially if it's anything touching on the DC Snyderverse, right? DCEU. I made no bones about it. The core of my channel, and me included, we wanted Zack to finish his story. Finish his story, and then you can go back and, that's an era of DC. Just like Tim Burton had his era, which was stopped prematurely. Nolan had his era, which Heath Ledger sort of derailed his Batman, his Dark Knight Rises, but Nolan still had his era. And then it was on to the Superman era. They wanted Nolan to do Superman, which in hindsight, that would have been kind of wild too, if Nolan would actually did that Superman film. But he tapped his buddy Zack Snyder, and the rest is history. Man of Steel. And again, that era was prematurely upended, really for various reasons. But the Snyderverse DCEU was just epic. Like the giving James Gunn's DC a chance, for ground level. You still want to see it come up a notch in epic tones. And I think there's a chance his DCU can get off the ground and, and do its thing. But in 2013, Man of Steel was the ground level. And it did quite well. Right? Like you have James Gunn's DC for 2025 combined, you have Creature Commandos, Peacemaker, Superman, and a promise of things to come. All that combined didn't match, in my opinion, what Man of Steel did when it dropped. It was a Superman that we needed after Superman Returns at that time. And it launched the DCEU. Then you got BVS that did massive numbers, of course. And to this day, I think Greg Silverman, one of the producers, says they made plenty of money off of BVS after the theatrical even. So as Snyder fans, if people don't understand, Snyder fans, it was an epic trajectory. And we know how that story went. So the other day, Zack Snyder posted this. Henry Cavill is Superman. From BVS, shot with my monochrome, we got 50 millimeter, that camera. And he says 3 weeks on Instagram, thanks to everyone. So this caused a lot of stir, and I want to comment on a few things that I'm seeing people talk about, and just give my take on things. First, initial reaction, seeing Zack Snyder post this. I was waiting for something DC, right? Like, and obviously he's filming The Last Photograph. I think that's going to be epic storytelling. Per usual, Zack Snyder's a very visual storyteller. Maybe people don't like his dialogue and stuff. I don't know. Zack Snyder has his style. Zack Snyder has his fans. And he's continuing to get financial backing. People got to keep that in mind because there is an audience. So him dropping this, I was just excited again just to see something DC related. Now wait till he drops a Ben Affleck picture. That'd be insane, right? Sheesh. A Gal Gadot picture. Come on now. But what do I feel this meant? There seems to be a conversation around, this was like a couple years ago. Zack Snyder, he's done with DC. Hey, guys, the antis are, hey, guys, Zack's done. Stop asking him. He's focused on his Netflix stuff. That's what people who weren't fans of Zack Snyder, who didn't see the clues of the Snyder Cut being released, said it was a pipe dream. These are the ones trying to say, hey, Zack Snyder has Snyder fans. Zack has moved on from DC. It's over. But we remember leading up to the Snyder Cut, Zack dropped that Dark Side picture. Zack started dropping all kinds of hints. We know when Zack wants to keep the DC conversation going, Zack knows what to do. So I've been saying before the James Gunn Superman film came out, during the filming of James Gunn Superman, and even after the performance of James Gunn Superman, that I feel Zack Snyder would have a chance to do some type of DC Elseworlds just to finish some version of his story. I've always felt that was possible. No matter if James Gunn Superman did $1 billion in the box office. Now they're claiming it's again a profit on their books, and that's what it is. I don't think that kills the chance for Zack Snyder to do another DC project. And that's why I said with the Snyder fandom, many are being misled by disingenuous people. And that narrative was out there that James Gunn has to fail. This has to be DOA. And then Zack, we could restore the Snyderverse. No. I've maintained that for the last few years. That you could have the Reeves verse, Crime Saga. You could have Gunn's verse, DCU. You could have Zack Snyder's Elseworld DC as well. Snyderverse. Nothing is dependent on the other. I don't feel Zack is going to come back and build out that world again. Let's just kind of be clear when we talk about this stuff. Let's be clear. Expectations. Restore the Snyderverse was obviously the 5-part arc. His Superman saga, right? Zack Snyder's Superman saga. You had a Cyborg film. You had a Flashpoint event. You had an Atom project. You had several things going on with the Snyderverse. So when we talk about restore, I'll just say this: like when the Snyder Cut came out, 2021, and talking with different accounts, Fiona put out there. She had the exclusive picture first off of the Snyder Cut where Wonder Woman's jumping over Steppenwolf. And then the Fiona account started talking about restore the Snyderverse. And at that time, talking with them then, it was about let's continue. Let's do the Batman, make the Batman movie, restore all these projects. And it was a chance for that. In 2022, things changed after Jason Kilar, basically fired the people who wanted to restore the Snyderverse. Then all of a sudden it was suck at Warner Brothers. This all happened like within a month. And that was a chance to restore all these projects. Now, when we talk about restore, I think most people are just saying finish Zack's story. And that's fine. But I spell it out like that because you had people still maintaining if we can get James Gunn Superman the movie to fail, then Zack can take over DC again. I don't see that happening. But I do see is a chance for Zack to give us a one shot and finish the story. I do believe that. And I'm gonna continue to keep my ear out to see if there's a chance for that to happen. Well, what I won't do is support false narratives. We're not going to do that. So seeing this picture, I feel like, oh, they're going to fire James Gunn and Zack's going to take over DC. No, the hope I do hold out, like I said, is for Zack to finish his story. I want to be very clear. When I'm saying restore the Snyderverse, when I'm saying, how Zack could do DC again, is to finish his story. And also, too, he wants to do the Dark Knight Returns. He wants to do another adaptation, which could all mean the same thing. I'm of the opinion when Zack says, I want to do Dark Knight Returns, that maybe that's code for him finishing his story. So I think it's possible. I think Zack's a smart dude. Okay. And so I will continue to hold out hope. And again, Zack said never say never. But as most people, most genuine Snyder fans, those that's not delusional, if Zack signified in any way that he's moving on from DC, we would accept it. As far as, again, those that are not delusional, Zack, this is just showing Zack's not moving on from DC. Like, he's still holding that nugget out there that, hey, and there's interesting things going on with the possible sale of Warner Brothers. I continued last year. I put out there about Turkey Al-Sheikh, the very wealthy Saudi who's a huge fan of Zack Snyder. Now Turkish Al-Sheikh. I was told last year they would keep an eye on the Saudis to potentially put in a bid for Warner Brothers. We'll see. If Warner Brothers Discovery survives with not being bought into spring of 2026 and it splits, the upcoming split, I wouldn't be surprised if Turkey Al-Sheikh and the crew, Saudis, put in a bid. It's as of the highest bidder is going to get this. Now there's stories that Turkey Al-Sheikh and his crew they're forming their own movie studio. Just stay tuned. Stay tuned to what's going to go on with that. That's going to be interesting. So, do I feel, again, Zack posting this, is he saying, hey, something's brewing? Well, longtime Snyder fans, we know when Zack is teasing something or just keeping something in the conversation. I think he is keeping this in the conversation. Now, I want to comment on how people are being affected by this. Those that, again, want to be a part of this fandom war, they get so upset, or they say Snyder fans are so toxic, but then they keep doing these backhanded slaps at Snyder and his fans when you already have the James Gunn Superman. Be happy if that's the version that you like, or if you want to go all the way back to Christopher Reeve or Brandon Routh, let Cavill Superman fans have their moment. I see these backhanded comments. Oh, he posted a dark picture. But yeah, have you seen BVS? BVS was a pretty dark film. Yeah, that's why I like it. I like that tone. If you like James Gunn's tone and you want more colors, so you got your different versions. This, seeing Henry Cavill Superman, again, a new shot, a BVS shot, making a lot of just Gunn fans a little nervous. Relax. You don't got a backhand. Oh, dark Superman. Go enjoy. You have your Superman now. If Corn Sweat is your Superman, you have it. Hey, you can watch it on HBO Max right now. Digital copies, physical media is coming. No one's taking that from you, and you're not taking Henry Cavill Superman from his fans. I mean, that's always been the hallmark of DC. Being a DC fan is different universes, multiverses, different tones. But I just see certain people feeling a little threatened by this Cavill stare. And hey, like I said, I think Zack's going to get a shot. If things come together, that will be great. We're still watching what Gunn is trying to do with his DCU. Still seeing what Reeves is going to do with his crime saga. We all can eat. That's why I said my channel started because of DC fandom, because it had the Snyderverse. It had Gunverse. It had Reeves. It had all kinds of stuff there. That was a perfect time for DC for me. Who knows if we'll get back to that moment, but do I feel something is imminent with the Snyderverse? I don't know. Do I feel Zack is done with DC? No, I don't feel Zack is done with DC. And I think that's what this picture is saying. And I believe Zack will do DC again. Let me know in the comments below. Did it hurt your feelings seeing this new shot of Cavill's Superman? Again, I see the same certain group of antis. They're like, oh, Zack is fanning the flames of his fandom. That shouldn't affect you. That shouldn't affect you. Just as if someone has an unreleased version of seeing Christopher Reeve in a Superman suit, just something, and they put it out there, and people's like, "Oh, Christopher Reeve is my Superman." I'm not mad at them for that. Rock on. No one's going to take away from what Christopher Reeve has done before, and no one's going to take away from the Henry Cavill Superman fans. These are some of my favorite fans on social media, because a lot of my early stories was intertwined with Henry Cavill being in Black Adam, his scenes for the Flash, Henry Cavill film scenes. I reported on all this stuff in real time, and some of my favorite people online, they're Snyder fans, but they also Henry Cavill fans, because some so-called Snyder fans didn't support Cavill and Black Adam. We ain't gonna get into that right now, but you're kind of seeing like where I'm seeing the fracture in the Snyder fandom, and those that's being disingenuous. But anyway, I think this was a great post by Zack Snyder, and I'm looking forward to any clues that he could be doing some kind of DC project in the future. In the meantime, like I said, you Gunn fans, calm down. Like, Gunn's doing Man of Tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to 2026 in DC, because it's going to be different voices, different things going on. So as a DC fan, I'm happy. I'm still gearing up to start talking about more specific comic book issues, and I'm going to have that part of the Geek Network overall as well. So I feel it's a good time for me for a DC fan, and even more so that Zack is still in the conversation for DC. Again, let me know in the comments below what you feel about that, with Zack posting pictures. And like I said, everyone, rock with what you want to rock with.
Forever vigilant, steady watching and listening, disciplined, militant, killing these dudes that started visiting. What's the latest word, yo, still we need to know. Tell us what you heard, yo, still we need to know. The ins and outs, who's walking out, buying in, we need to know. Your thoughts on what's new, what you do to stream a hell of a show. Let's go. One hell of a show, let's go.